terminal defense. Terminal defense regarding pollution and environment kills their second advantage. They now have no offense. And then also the other key thing here is the Western cultural central anthropological thing. They don't respond to this, cross-apply this. This means that regardless of what positive impacts they have, we're still imposing our Western culture on the natives. This just turns exactly what they said about us, of the natives continuing to be screwed over. Also, the terminal defense aspect is all affirmative action. We realize that we screwed over the natives in the past. We're taking affirmative and positive action to remedy that. They don't respond to this as unresponsive. Game over again. Okay, they have no control over other actors. Another option, there are international companies in an increasingly globalized world. Now let's go to the deep college. Okay. We turn back all their arguments, don't let them make new offensive arguments in the next speech. This means a chance of residual link is going to be enough for you to vote on the K right here, because these are the biggest impacts in the round. Ontology and methodology come before policy. They talk about util good, cap good, and managerialism good. The fact of the matter is these dehumanize all life to the 0 point of the Holocaust. This is going to be the biggest impact in the round because ontology comes before policy. It's also capitalism specifically is the internal link to all violence. They don't specifically say how it's not. If they don't say how it's not in the next speech, this means that capitalism it was the cause of World War II, it's the cause of genocide. It's going to inevitably lead to huge negative impacts. They talk about the perms, they try to make perms, but they don't respond to the severance arguments where we're saying this perm severance. They already had an advocacy in the PMC where they talk about how, they talk about a utilitarian mindset. This means that this is an independent a priori voting issue because they're severing out of their original advocacy. My partner also talks about each one of the perms individually. Anything else on this? Okay. So just an overview of this K. We have they have a residual link. There's a link to the K. We have the base impacts in the round. They have no offense here. Let's go to T. They do not cover T. This means they're non-topical. This means that the game was over. The round was over in the MG. They do not talk about predictability. No matter what they say in the next speech, like look on your floaters, gut checklist. They do not talk about predictability. They do not talk about ground, limits, reasonability, real world, or strat skew. Dropping all of these standards is enough to lose them the round right here. I'm sorry, but round's over right here. Also, they don't offer counter voters in any manner whatsoever. This right here wins us the round. Go to the GOP backlash. They cover nothing on this. My partner extended it in the MOC. We have big impacts. This is another place where you can vote, especially because they have no offense, nothing here. I know. Is there a cross-X?
Yeah, there is. Okay. I already started the time.
We're cross-Xing you, correct?
No.
Oh, no, but
It's basically just
or you can start. Okay, sorry.
Alright, I'm going to do an overview on top, and then go GOP backlash, T over fishing, then I'll put our case in order, so ground fish and natives, and then the K at the bottom. Alright, so essentially an overview of why we run the round is because they really failed at spreading. They didn't really understand they failed at spreading when they ignored our emphasis that you should prefer probability over these nebulous scenarios because they just give you a million 1% chance voters.
Point of order, you never said anything substantive about probability in your
PMC.
PMC.
Yeah.
It comes straight out of
You actually yeah, no, we talked about this.
You respond. You say it creates judge intervention.
Yeah.
That wasn't a probability. It was on the same impact.
We said prefer 100% probability of solving this. You have a moral obligation to do that.
You said moral obligation. You said anything about probability.
I'm sure it's under consideration.
Okay, well. Anyways, they failed the spread strategy at the point where they have no real impact in the round, and we give you like 2 really well thought out, perfectly explained, uncontested impacts. That's where you're going to vote. Okay, now on to political backlash. This was almost damning to the affirmative when we dropped it, but then it's even more damning when they dropped it in their own speech. Why didn't they blow this up and go for it? That was like they could have, but they didn't. So there was no impact on this. No impact coming out of the MO, and like that was they should have done that. Like, but we would have lost, but they didn't. So there's no impact to this, and we'll always outweigh at the point where like we have these like 2 solid advantages that stand really strong, and like have full access to these impacts. They didn't spend enough time on them because of their failed spread strategy. All right, now we're going to overfishing. All we need is this reasonability standard and our counterinterp. Our counterinterp means that says that overfishing means fishing to the point where a fish population is endangered. They don't talk about why this counterinterp is bad, but it's actually a really good counterinterp because saying that we should only consider a fish population overfished when it's extinct is ridiculous. That's an extension of the reasonability, like why you should prefer our counterinterpretation, because it's way more reasonable. And we do, like, those are the only arguments that we have to make, and we do make them in the MG. So you're obviously not going to vote on this topicality when we are topical and there's no topical app, and that would be terrible verification to prefer their definition. On to the ground disadvantage. They say that there's no chance that we can, okay, they make the argument that if there's a chance that we don't solve, that you should vote nay, but at the point where they have, like, no impact, then that's, like, the opposite of how that argument works. If there's a chance that we can solve, you vote app. That's the argument that everyone says. I think that but that's, okay. So at the point where there's any chance the plan solves and they have no offense, then you should obviously vote for the plan. Next, they say that we can't solve global warming and population, but they don't talk about how global warming and pollution. They don't talk about how global warming and pollution collapses biodiversity. So you should always prefer our specific internal link about algal blooms. And they don't say anything about how global warming can cause that, which means it's probably not really an all cause. They just say we can't solve for it, and they indict the app for not being able to solve for global warming and pollution all over the world. That's ridiculous. Maybe we should solve for econ crash too.
Our time frame happens now because we
our time frame happens now. We isolate a brink. They're all causes. Don't address this brink at all. Next, they say that slot size doesn't equate age, but like at the point where bigger fish are able to produce more larvae, then like that's all we need is that like we talk about how they're able to produce more larvae. Long story short, we do solve for fish populations, which means we have full access to the impact of biod. So that's where you should vote. Next, the native populations. They say that we're just imposing Western ideals, but we're probably we already imposed Western ideals at the point where we took over their land and they live in our country, so we're just trying to solve back for some of that. So then they say that we can't solve other countries screwing over natives. That's not a reason that we shouldn't solve the fact that we're screwing over natives. Then they say that we're trying to remedy in the status quo. Good, that's a good direction that things should move. That's why our plan does this. Our plan is just another instance of our plan is this happening.
This solves better for their K.
Yeah, this solves better for their K than they do. But yeah, so the fact that this is happening in the squirrel, like the plan does it, that's a good thing. We should keep moving in that direction. So yeah, vote on the fact that this you have an obligation to vote here because we're screwing over natives, and if there's a chance that we can stop that, then you should vote there. Okay, on this critique, I have no idea what they're critiquing. They just talk about every single buzzword you've ever heard in a critique ever, from biopower to democracy to managerialism. They say that we turn all of these. They're all good. They don't address any of our turns to capitalism. Probably good. Also, they don't have any link to capitalism. Us helping the environment is not a link to capitalism. Then they say that on the perm, don't vote for us on the perm, do this and talk about it out of round. They said that we won't talk about it out of round, but yeah, we will, because Tyler, you and I have a lot of interesting conversations. I would genuinely like to talk about this out of round. Also, I don't understand this critique at all, and it doesn't make a lot of sense, so I really want to know what exactly we're doing, so we should talk about it. Also, it's not severance because we're talking about it all out of round. And also, if this is really an important critique, then we should just talk about it out of round. Yeah. Oh, also, they said that we're just going to get coffee and go to our next round, but we have a bye, so that means we can sit here and talk about it out of round. And so, yeah, there's no reason that we shouldn't do this. If they think this critique is important and they genuinely stand by it, then, yeah, let's talk about it out of round. I guess right now.
Okay.